Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower. And today I'm going to talk about games with second editions or third editions and games where the original edition or one of the earlier editions is better than the one you can currently get. Here's the deal. This is not a common thing at all. Every time a game comes out with a new edition, there's always going to be a bunch of fans who scream and say, oh, the new one ruins the old one. The old one was better in so many different ways. But usually that cry becomes fainter and fainter, and the new edition completely takes it over. And many times the new edition sometimes completely obliterates the older versions of these games. But there are some where I think the original one is better. And here are 10 instances of that where I like the older ones better than the new one. So first of all, we have Maharaja. This is a new one. In fact, I haven't even reviewed this game yet. I'll be reviewing it next week. From Cranial Creations, the new version is. But the original game, while I don't think the artwork in the original game is that laudable, the new one has some serious problems with functionality. Spinners that don't work, that don't even fit into your device the way they're supposed to. The rules also were changed, where I think the older rules were better. It just felt like the original one is a better version than the newer one. So that's Maharaja. Number 9. Now, be warned, I have a personal stake in number 9. That's Sheriff of Nottingham. So Sheriff of Nottingham was the new game, was the first game for Dice Tower Essentials line from Arcane Wonders. And I was part of that, and I thought they did a fantastic job. This was just reprinted by CMON. In fact, I did a comparison video of them last year. And while there are a couple things about the new version, I like that they include the 6th player in the game, and it's not a terrible version by any means. It's just that I made a Frankenstein version to put into our Dice Tower library here, and I used most of the stuff from the original one. The coins were better in the original one. I think the artwork was better in the original one. The card layout was better in the original Sheriff of Nottingham. So, this one is down near the bottom of the list because I don't know that it's as egregious of a change at all. I think CMON did a decent job, but I think the Arcane Wonders version is better. Number 8 is Kingsburg. Now, here's the thing. I have the new version of Kingsburg in the library because it came with the expansion included, and I like that. It also came with a few other minor things that I liked. But the original Kingsburg, to me, just looked better. It was bright. It was cheerful. The new one is a muted, drab look. And the original one, you could get the expansion for it, and then you had almost everything in the new one anyway. So if I had my druthers, I think I would keep the original Kingsburg. Just because I like the brightness of it and how cheerful it is compared to modern-day Kingsburg. Number 7 is Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. Now, this is one of the times in this list that Days of Wonder is going to show up. Days of Wonder does a fantastic job with their games. And the original Cleopatra Society of Architects had these plastic pieces. It was this really neat thing. Well, the new one was like, we got to be better than that. It's hard to outdo Days of Wonder. And they have this huge box with huge stuff. And it just isn't as good. The rule set's a little better, for sure, but the magnet clasps things that you need to pay extra for, which don't work that well anyway, and the fact that the game comes in a huge box. The original one came in a Ticket to Ride size box, and price point, and you factor all that stuff, that original one is just a better bang for your buck. And I like the new one. It's nice, but it feels like an overwhelming, somewhat sloppy presentation compared to the original game. Number 6 is Ink and Gold. Now here the original version has a different name, and that's Diamant. Diamant came out in Europe, and it was a push-your-luck game going into temples. Ink and Gold was done over here, and it's just a difference of quality. The gameplay is the exact same, but in Diamant, you have these little chests that you build out of cardboard that you put stuff in. In Ink and Gold, you fold a card and call it a tent. Diamant had really nice artwork. Ink and Gold had artwork. Again, they're functionally the same game, but the components were so much better in Diamant. And you can still get good versions. You can even get a version of it that's called Ink and Gold, as nice as Diamant. Unfortunately, it's not in North America. Number 5 is Blue Moon City. here's another one where CMON's getting nailed on the reprint because the original Blue Moon City I thought was gorgeous and looked fantastic, and the CMON reprint was fine. I liked it. It's still a fun game. They didn't change almost any rules that I can tell, but I thought, and while the new components were for the dragons were slightly better than CMON, the rest of it, especially the artwork, when I play Blue Moon City, the original, it looks like a vibrant, wonderful little city. The new one is like, meh, and it's just not nearly as exciting. Number 4 is Colosseum, another Days of Wonder. The print of Colosseum Days of Wonder is fantastic. It's in my Dice Tower library. When I heard someone was going to reprint it, I was like, good luck with that, because it's going to be hard to top that, and they didn't. Tasty Minstrel did the reprint, and the reprint was essentially just, they did their best. But Days of Wonder had these really cool pawns. The Emperor had like a wreath on him as he walked around. The artwork was really cool. The whole layout of the board just looked amazing, and the new one was good and would have probably been okay had the original one not existed. Number 3 is Acquire. Now, I want to be careful. I'm not talking about the original Acquire. I'm talking about the middle Acquire that came out in the early 2000s from Hasbro/Avalon Hill. Hasbro/Avalon Hill made, in my opinion, the definitive beautiful version. A big plastic one with plastic buildings, plastic little things that you stacked really well. Looked great on the table. And subsequent printings that they themselves, Hasbro, have done are just, they're just not nearly as good. They flatten things. The pieces are much cheaper than they were. That version is pretty expensive to have. In fact, I don't have a version in Dice Tower Library. I'm still hunting for one because I think that one is the best. Yes, some people like the old 3M and the old ones with wooden tiles and stuff. Okay, fine. They don't look that great. But that early 2000s one looked fantastic, and modern ones don't hold up to that. And in fact, well, I'll hang on to my number 1 to talk a little bit more about that. Number 2 is Nexus Op. Now, this is just a preferential one. So this one was another one done by Hasbro, and that they originally put this together with their Avalon Hill branding, and then Fantasy Flight reprinted it. So Fantasy Flight's getting the thumbs down this one slightly, but again, Fantasy Flight did a good job with the reprint. The miniatures were nice, but they were translucent fluorescent colors in the original. It just looked cool. It looked like no other game out there. When Fantasy Flight republished it, it was kind of like, yeah, we've seen this before. Games like this before. It's still the same game, great game. But that original one is the one I want my hands on because I like it. Yes, I'm never going to play the game under a black light. It would be cool if I could, right? But it does. It just has this neat alien-esque feel to it that the new one does not. And number 1 for me is Robo Rally. So Robo Rally originally published from Wizards of the Coast, from Richard Garfield. This was a game that he wanted to publish, and they didn't have the money for it, so they asked him to publish a little card game, which turned into Magic the Gathering. But Robo Rally was the reason Magic the Gathering exists, and that original version, plus the Amigo versions, the German versions, are so much better than the current garbage versions that have way lower card stock, the robots aren't as cool. There was really nice robots in that original German version, and those original versions are all superior to the modern one. They even changed some of the rules briefly, and it's one of those games that every time a new printing of it comes out, it seems to get worse. It's just a weird thing to me in that regard. Hasbro Avalon Hill, I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about Acquire. This seems to be a thing. Nowadays, when they come out with a reprinting of an older game, I feel like it's going to be worse than the original one, unfortunately, because it seems to be that way across the board. But anyway, these are the top 10 games that I think were better in their earlier incarnations. What about you? What do you think? What are games I missed? What are games that you think were better in the previous versions than they are currently? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. See you next time.